Greetings, friends. Prepare for another thrilling journey as we delve into Reddit's most bizarre tales. We're plunging deep into the quirkiest corners of the web. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Remember to hit subscribe and like. Let's begin. I am 31. Have been with my wife, F34, for 9 years, married for 4. We have 2 children, aged 7 and 11. I officially adopted our eldest about 4 years ago, but I've been a part of his life since he was 1.5 years old. I've been there for everything. Sleepless nights, accidents, stepping on Legos, learning to ride bikes. He's my son in every way that matters. In January of last year, my wife started a part-time serving job at night. She began going out with her coworkers to local bars and their homes 1 to 3 times a week after work. Sometimes she'd be out for an hour or two after closing. Sometimes until 3 a.m. She also had a second part-time day job, working for about 4 to 5 hours. Meanwhile, I worked a 50-hour week from home. Since my job was more flexible, I took the kids to and from school, helped with their homework and projects, and managed most of their activities like sports and doctor's appointments. While we both handled these tasks, I carried a bit more of the load. On top of that, I worked on my side business at night, something I built from scratch and feel deeply proud of. It's my passion and dream. By late spring and early summer, my wife began working more at the night job and less at the daytime one, which meant she was also spending more time out with her coworkers. I expressed my concerns several times, but she'd always respond with, "The kids are asleep, I'm just out with coworkers." I'd suggest activities we could do together. Games, painting, just hanging out. Things you want to do with your spouse. But it was easier for her to stick with the people she was already with. As summer drew to a close, the late nights continued. There were new friends I had never met and changes in her routine. Then, my wife approached me one day and said, "Hey, I've developed a silly little crush on a coworker. It's nothing serious, but I just wanted to be upfront and let you know. Let's call him Fred." Feeling secure in our marriage and confident in the years we'd spent together, I wasn't too concerned. After all, we'd been through so much, and she was the mother of my children. I responded with something like, "Thanks for telling me. I appreciate your honesty. You work with the guy, but we're married and have been together for 8 years. I trust you, and I know we're only human. These things happen. It's no big deal." I tried to approach the situation with empathy, though maybe a bit naively. I even joked that she could grab coffee with the guy, thinking she'd eventually realize how silly the crush was and brush it off. I hoped she'd come to her senses and remember that I was her husband. Boy, was I wrong. A month passed and nothing changed. She kept going out to the bars. I was still taking care of the kids, doing dinners and bedtimes alone. During this time, I lost my day job, a unique position that allowed me flexibility with the kids and paid fairly well. I decided to focus on my side business full-time, and it started thriving. Some months, I was even making double what I had been before. I was excited, working hard day and night to keep everything running smoothly. Financially, we split things about 60-40 throughout most of our relationship, with me covering a bit more. We had kids when we were in our 20s, and supporting a family of 4 wasn't easy with just 1 or 2 jobs. My wife always wanted me to pay for everything so she could stay home, but it's tough in today's economy. One month, my wife went on a week-long trip to visit a friend on the West Coast. Everything seemed fine, but when she returned, we went to a concert, and I noticed something was off. She was texting one of her exes, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. I confronted her, and she told me she had bumped into him by chance during a trip at a concert. They reconnected and started talking again. At this point, I became worried and started questioning what really happened during that trip. In our entire relationship, I had never gone through her phone. But one day, I had the chance, and something inside me just told me to look. What I found devastated me. She had cheated on me with a random guy she met during that trip. The texts between them were filled with excitement and praise, and she seemed to enjoy the attention. But that wasn't the worst part. I also found messages where she was planning a hotel night with Fred the same week she returned from that trip. As if one betrayal wasn't enough, she was arranging another. She was going to lie about being too drunk to drive home from a friend's party and spend the night at a hotel with him. There were also other conversations with random guys, talking about meeting up for drinks and asking, "Let me check if my babysitter is free." I realized I was the babysitter she was referring to. At that moment, I felt completely shattered. It was like being hit by a freight train, pierced with sharp objects, and dragged through molten lava. I was absolutely overwhelmed with fury and disbelief. I simply couldn't process it. To give some context, in the beginning, our intimate life was incredible. We had such a great connection physically, but over the last 3 years, things had pretty much come to a standstill. I found myself pleading for intimacy and considered myself fortunate if we were together even once or twice a month. When I married her, we had a similar desire for closeness, which was pretty high for both of us. But after our second child, her interest seemed to drop significantly. I was the one always initiating, trying to create moments of connection, trying to show her I still wanted her in that way. When I saw her again, I confronted her. She appeared stunned that I had found out and was more upset that I had gone through her phone than anything else. I later discovered there were more things I had missed hidden in her Snapchat. She didn't immediately cry or respond how I thought she would. She didn't fall apart in tears, begging for forgiveness. Instead, she looked sad and in shock. It took a few days before she truly broke down and realized she might have ruined our marriage beyond repair. I was struggling to make sense of everything, dealing with the pain, the betrayal, the confusion, the deep mix of emotions. For weeks, I wrestled with it all, and eventually, the weight of it led to deep depression. But she was still my wife. Despite everything, I tried my best to focus on the good I had seen in her and work through things for the sake of our kids, our home, and our marriage. I wanted to be the bigger person. I told her not to stay at her friend's place. I wanted us to try and work it out. I told her that despite the betrayal, I still loved her because of everything we had been through. We even shared the same bed that night. Was this some kind of trauma bond? Then, within a few weeks, between July and August, things went completely off the rails. I will admit some responsibility here because I was in such a fragile mental state that I wasn't functioning properly. I was utterly broken, or at least that's what it felt like. We made a terrible decision to try an open relationship as a trial run. It seemed like an exciting new idea, something that sounded good in theory. We laid out rules and agreed to give it a try. She went on a date with Fred, and I tried to be supportive, even open to the idea. Who knew? Maybe it would help us at that point. She came home afterward and told me about the night, how it was just a casual outing with him and some friends. But that was when I realized I would never have the time to pursue someone else while juggling kids and my business. It was a concept that might work for her, but in hindsight, it didn't make any sense for me. I felt like I was drowning, trying to make sense of things. One night, I asked her to spend time with me instead of watching TV, maybe help with a simple task that would only take an hour. She wasn't interested and preferred to watch her show. That's when I broke. I said something dismissive, like, sure, whatever, but inside, I felt the love and care between us vanish. I was consumed by depression and emotional numbness. It felt like a dark transformation, like when Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. I was filled with vengeance, hatred, and bitterness. I couldn't believe I had invested so much in this relationship, adopting her son, working 2 jobs for years, only to be treated this way. I had given everything for this family, day in and day out, and now it felt like my entire life had been thrown away. I downloaded Tinder and quickly arranged a date with someone. I wasn't even interested in how she looked or what she had to say. I was just desperate to feel the numbness my wife had caused, to understand how she could do this so easily. We ended up going to a secluded spot and hooking up. My wife had access to my location and showed up at 2 a.m. with the kids in the car to catch me in the act. Who brings their kids out at 2 a.m. like that? It was pure madness. She hit me multiple times, throwing things from her car at my head. I didn't fight back. I was completely dazed and in shock. Then she made me drive the woman I had met back to her car, with my wife and kids in the backseat. It was a ridiculous situation. Traumatizing the kids like that. absolutely insane. Afterward, she forced me to stay in a hotel for a few nights. She trashed our house, scattered my belongings everywhere, threatened to destroy my business equipment, and continued to scream, hit, and throw things at me. In my mind, I kept thinking, what was I even thinking, doing something like that? But I also realized when she was unfaithful to me, I was furious but remained calm and reasonable. We still slept in the same bed the night I confronted her. I yelled a little, but I didn't make her leave or throw her things out. Yet when I did the same thing, she couldn't handle it and reacted with such cruelty and malice. After I returned home, it was days of tension. I tried to keep the peace, explaining that I was feeling broken, depressed, and hurt by what she had done to me, and by how she reacted when I mirrored her actions. No, what I did was worse. I should have been the bigger person and not retaliated, even though we were in an open relationship. It was my fault, and she kept calling me the lowest of the low, making me out to be the villain. A poor excuse for a husband and a horrible person for getting back at her. All the while, she refused to acknowledge that it was her betrayal that brought me to this point. Everything was falling apart so quickly. Why did it all crumble so fast? There was another factor affecting this rushed, open relationship. A few days later, my wife found out she was pregnant. We were suddenly thrown into a whirlwind of panic, with everything in our world spinning out of control. We soon learned that the pregnancy aligned perfectly with her week-long trip out west. It was with the man she met and was intimate with out there. I knew this because we hadn't been intimate the week before or after her trip. It's not an excuse for her behavior, but the pregnancy hormones might have contributed to her intensity when she caught me, even though we were technically in an open relationship. I just overlooked some rules, though she broke our marriage vows when she cheated. Even so, she considered keeping the other man's baby, and I made it clear. It's your body. You need to make this decision. I don't want to sway you in any way. This is your body, not mine. I reiterated this many, many times. One day, she asked what I would do if she kept this man's baby. I answered honestly, I don't know if I can handle raising another man's child, especially given the circumstances. After a week, she decided to have an abortion. Even at the clinic, I told her we could go home, that she didn't have to go through with it, emphasizing again that it was her choice. I even offered to drive her back home, even though she initially planned to have Fred drive her. Almost immediately afterward, she regretted her decision. She wanted to keep that man's baby and made me feel as though I had forced her to choose an abortion. From August to December, my life was in turmoil. Worse than watching my mother slowly die of cancer. It was a terrible time filled with constant fights, trauma, and chaos. She would throw my things outside, beg me to leave, but then ask me to fight for her. She kept switching between what she wanted. Some days, she would become physically aggressive, even hitting me. She would take the kids away for weekends or weeks at a time, and even tried to take them from me on Christmas Eve. Though she brought them back later that night, it was pure pain and chaos. Then came the ultimatum. She regretted not keeping the baby and said, I'm not willing to work on our relationship unless you give me a baby. She wouldn't even consider fixing our marriage unless she was pregnant first. Am I crazy for thinking that's not normal? We're not wealthy people, lower middle class at best. We manage to get by each month, but we have no savings, no retirement plan, nothing. I know that having another child right now is financially the worst decision we could make. And after everything we've been through, the last thing I want is to have another child with the woman who betrayed me. It sounds selfish, but our existing kids deserve as much care and attention as we can give them with the little resources we have. I can't work 90 hours a week and still be okay. I know I don't have the mental, emotional, financial, or physical capacity for another child. But I know she wants another to fill the void left by losing the other, but I don't feel like that should fall on me. It's not right to place the entire marriage on a selfish desire after everything that's happened. It's been 6 months since this all happened. We're more amicable and somewhat peaceful when we talk now. Both of us are still hurt, still in pain, but living under the same roof. I want to be there for my kids every day. That's my priority now. It used to be my wife, the kids, and then myself. But now it's the kids, myself, and my wife last. He's kids so much, and I know they would be devastated without their dad around. Sure, 50% is better than nothing, but it's tough. I want to be there every day for them like I have been for the past 10 years. I adopted her son as my own, and she wants to take them away for a 50-50 split custody arrangement at best. I love these kids so much, and I know they would be devastated without their dad around. Sure, 50% is better than nothing, but it's tough. Am I crazy for still considering giving in to what my wife wants? Am I insane for still wanting this marriage to work? I think about it and sometimes feel like a weak man who just wants his kids. I want peace, not more headaches. But another baby sounds overwhelming right now. But we're definitely at a crossroads. There's no more straight path. A decision has to be made. Do I give her a child to save the marriage for my children, working even more hours to stay afloat, knowing I'm doing it all for my kids and a wife who cheated on me while I cheated back? Do I just give in and give her this dream of a baby to keep my family together? Or do I walk away with my peace, knowing that I tried my best to make it work, but understanding that life will be infinitely harder raising two kids in separate households? I'll still have to work extra hours or find some miracle job that can afford two kids and a single dad in this economy. I don't have much of a friend network or any family here. I'd pretty much be on my own. I have no Reddit. I'm just one person out of billions, going through a different experience. I thought I'd share this. Any advice, clarity, perspective, or stories would be appreciated. I have a gut feeling about what I should do, choosing myself and my happiness/peace, but it's tough.